Welcome back, everybody, to lesson 4 of stage 3 of the Power Playbook community. Today we're going to be talking about understanding body mechanics, going through our basic muscle groups and their functions. We'll preface this lesson, kind of like I had to preface the last one, that this is the first lesson we're kind of getting into a more targeted vector, per se, into like types of training. So what I mean by that is this is kind of a primer to understanding how to properly weight train. Okay. And so weight training is the thing that I've chosen. Well, it's the thing I have experience in, first of all, but also it's the thing I've chosen to be the focus for the training portions of the fitness sector of the Power Playbook community because I think the average man benefits the most and can easily access a certain like a weight training regimen compared to other things that you got to pay for lessons to do. And then also, I just think this is the most beneficial and easily accessible way for a man to increase his level of fitness. Okay. So if you found in the objective lesson that you're playing a sport and your objective is I want to be really good at the sport, I want to go pro, whatever it is, you got to think about the fact that I can't just make. First of all, I don't have the experience in every sport possible. I can't just go make a video saying this is how to be a pro in mixed martial arts or this is how to be better at football. But what I can do is tell you guys that this is like we mentioned before. This is tailored for the average man in wherever you live, right? That currently has no experience in fitness and wants to be to a point where you can establish, excuse me, good fitness habits for yourself. Okay. And on average, the average man in the United States does not work out, doesn't have a training regimen that they follow. Whether or not they're fit, different thing. I mean, it could just be from work, whatever it is you do for work. But we're trying to take you guys from a point of having no current good habits to developing a sense of discipline for yourself through good fitness habits. And I think the most effective way that the average man in the United States would benefit as far as training goes is by becoming leaner, bigger, stronger, faster. And weight training combined with cardiovascular training and proper nutrition and diet is the tried and tested and proven most effective way to achieve that. And if you want to throw in some sports things on top of that, maybe in lieu of your cardiovascular training, perfect, fine by me. But what we're doing here is we're going to prime you guys by understanding the way your body moves. And we'll get into why this is important here in the second slide here, or third slide rather, because we got the overview. But priming you guys to understand how the body moves will help you guys more effectively train in our once we get into the next few lessons talking about exact weight training regimens to go through. So with that said, we're going to start on the first lesson where we have content on how to actually train. But the overview is we're going to be going through understanding body mechanics. We got one more slide about basics for this kind of thing. Then we've got an overview of major muscle groups. And then within that overview, we're going to go through upper body specifics, lower body, core. We're going to talk about the importance of form. That should round us out for today. So understanding body mechanics. Body mechanics have a direct impact to your workout effectiveness. So let's just think for a sec. If you're going to be in the gym doing some weight training, right? Would you not think it's pretty imperative for you to be able to, in order to target, certain muscles that you want to see growth in, or to develop overall strength, that you understand how those muscles work? What movements are the most effective or actually effective at all for targeting this muscle group? If I want to be better, I want to be able to do more push-ups. Well, pushing is primarily a chest exercise. So if you understand that, okay, now I can go target my chest because I don't struggle as much with pull-ups, but I can go target my chest to develop my push-up ability, right? So that's kind of why we're talking about body mechanics. It's important to understand how your body moves, what muscles are responsible for what, so that you can then effectively identify training that's relevant to your goals and carry out with it. So basic knowledge also reduces your risk of injury because if you understand the way they move, you also understand inherently the way they're not supposed to move. So if you're doing something that is contrary to the way your body naturally wants to move, you're probably going to be more prone to injury. So we solve that by understanding how it does move. And this sets up a foundation for long-term fitness progress. Like I said, these are just foundational foundational elements to being in the gym and weight training. That's why we're teaching them first before we get into actual regimens. Because I think a lot of times, influencers, they want to sell out quick and be like, oh, buy my program. It's like they just dive right into, okay, just go do this, but you don't really have an understanding as to why you're doing it and how this helps your progress, right? So we're going to understand how muscles move and work together. And with that, we're going to get right into the first muscle group on our list. We're going to go into chest muscles, okay, from the upper body. So in the upper body, basically your major muscle groups are going to be your chest, shoulders, arms, your back. Core, we kind of separate just because core is attached to your legs inherently as well. So it's not quite legs, not quite upper body, even though it kind of remains in the upper side, but we're going to have core as itself. So first muscle up on the upper body side of things is your chest. The main muscles, okay, here's another thing I'm going to preface. As we go through each of these, there are like hundreds of muscles in your body that are responsible for very minute things. But in general, they all add to the greater ability of the group, right? So I'm not going to list every single fiber and strand that's in your pectoralis, in the pec area. But we're going to talk about the main ones. Okay, so your main ones in the chest are your pectoralis major and minor. It splits the chest right around. Let's see if you can see my mouse. Right around here. See how the fibers kind of angle down. The major's on top, minor's underneath that. So your major function of the chest is to move your arms and support pushing. So anytime you're kind of reaching around, if you can see in my camera, reaching around like this to like think about giving somebody a hug. That's largely your chest, bringing the arms together, and then also pressing movements. So think about your push-ups, pushing something off of you, pushing yourself up off the ground. That's pushing away from your body is largely your chest. So target exercises, like we mentioned, pressing movements and flies. Flies is just another word for the example I gave you. Think about like giving a hug to somebody, keeping your arms extended and wrapping them forward towards your body. That's your fly movement. And that point underneath, it says different angles equal different parts. So if you think about a bench press, that's a barbell, right? If you don't know what a barbell is, it's the bar of a bench press, and you put weights on each side. Bench press requires you to lay flat like this, okay? An incline bench press requires you to lay up a little bit, and a decline requires you to lay down a little bit. And those equate to moving and targeting specifically different areas of the chest. So a decline works the lower, incline works the upper. It's pretty self-intuitive. Your normal bench press kind of is encompassing the whole chest area. And then you can do the same thing with flies. So if you're going to raise up with flies, let's see if you can see me doing that. Raise up with flies to the middle, and you can come down even. Works different part of the chest. We'll talk more about that when we get into actual weight training regimens in further lessons from now. But for now, just understand that, pressing and flies, you can target different parts of the chest by hitting different angles. And this helps with upper body strength and posture. That's what the chest does. So we'll move on now to the back. Also part of the upper body. Your main muscles in the back are your latissimus dorsi, commonly referred to as your lats. And if you look at this diagram here where I got my mouse, it's this part of the back right here that kind of flares out from the side of your back. From the front, you can see it from the back as well if they're real developed. Then you got your trapezius, commonly referred to as your traps. That's kind of your neck area up here, like where your back connects to your neck, if that makes sense. So doing shrugs, right? If you think about that, that's your traps. Rhomboids are what you see in the middle of the back, in the upper middle back area there. So when you're doing a row, well, I guess we can talk about that in a second, but those are the main muscle groups for your back. We're going to talk about how the function of your back is pulling. So pulling something towards yourself, whether that be from above and pulling down or in front of you and pulling, that's your back for the most part. Back is essential for your posture, for your shoulder and upper support, keeping yourself straight, right? That's if you have a well-developed back, that'll help a lot with your posture. Target exercises for the back would be rows, which rows is just what you see this diagram here on the bottom doing. That is a barbell row. It's just pulling something from the ground or from in front of you if you're doing a cable to your chest. So you're just pulling towards your chest. We also have pull-ups. I have up, down, and overs because there's pull-ups, there's pull downs and there's pull overs, right? Those all work different muscles from the back. But if you think of a pull up, everybody knows what a pull up is. You're just grabbing a bar, pulling yourself up. A pull down is like if you're sitting in a machine and then you have a cable with a bar attached up here and you're pulling it down to yourself. And a pull over is a way to target the lats specifically. So you're going to be, instead of just pulling down, you kind of pull and you come down like this, if that makes sense. So you can we'll talk about this kind of thing again in further lessons when we get into specific regimens. But for now, understand that pulling, rowing, and deadlift also, interestingly enough. A lot of people think deadlift is mainly for the legs, but a deadlift requires, if you don't know what a deadlift is, it's just picking up a barbell off the ground, right? In its most simple terms. But deadlift requires the entire posterior chain, which links from your back, your glutes, all the way down to your hamstrings to work. So deadlift is commonly used to develop a larger back by a lot of people. But back is useful for stability, posture, upper body strength. Pretty self-intuitive stuff, but that's your back in a nutshell. Talk about your shoulder muscles. Let me move this so you guys see the diagram better. Okay, your main shoulder muscles we'll talk about are your anterior, your lateral, and posterior deltoids, and then also your rotator cuff. So the rotator cuff is there for stability mostly. If you're going to be developing the muscles in your shoulder for aesthetics or for size or for strength, you're going to be focusing mostly on the heads of the deltoid. So in order, I'll talk about these. Your anterior or your front deltoid is in the front of your body, right here, if you can see my mouse. Lateral is on the side here. It's a long head. Oh, that's not what we wanted to do. On the side here. And your rear deltoid, posterior deltoid, obviously is in the back. So there's 3 heads to the deltoid. You can do exercises to target all 3 of them. The function of those is to raise and rotate arms. Also for secondary pulling and pushing. So if you're going to be pulling while doing back exercises, the rear deltoid tends to get involved with that. It's not a main mover, but it is, like I mentioned there, it's a secondary mover for compound lifts, right? And what a compound lift is, I won't go too in depth because we have a lot more content on that further on, but a compound lift just requires the movement of multiple muscle groups as opposed to an isolation movement that only requires one specific muscle group. But anyways, also pushing. So if you're going to be doing a bench press, that front deltoid a lot of times gets engaged as well. But if you think about the shoulder, it exists there to keep your arm mobile, to be moving in any direction you want it to, up, sideways, down. So that's the point of the shoulder. Some target exercises would be shoulder press, where you're just sitting down and you press a bar or a dumbbell up. Lateral raises, which is if you're just standing there, you're holding a dumbbell or a cable at your side and you just extend it fully out this way. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. Lateral raise. And a rear fly, kind of the same movement as a lateral raise, but it's when you're bent over and you're moving the weight backwards, right? So those are some target exercises. Well, once again, I guess I'll just quit saying this after this one, but we're going to talk a lot more in depth about that in further lessons. But the shoulders are essential for stature, arm mobility, and joint stability. Absolutely essential for mobility, okay? That's why I included the rotator cuff there for stability in the main muscles, but you won't be necessarily training to develop the rotator cuff, but what you'll do is mobility work to prime and to get the shoulder ready to sustain larger loads once you're actually weightlifting, right? But yeah, shoulders, without a shoulder, there's a lot less you can do. And if you've ever had a shoulder injury, you know that for a fact. So that is shoulders. Upper body, arm muscles. We got the biceps, triceps, and forearms, okay? Everybody loves to train these. When you go to the gym, or if you think of people that go to the gym, or commonly like when going to the gym is referred to, your bicep curl is the classic movement that everybody loves to see. But the function of your arms is flexing and extending the elbows. If you think about that, so if you're trying to bring your hand up or down, your bicep for up and tricep for down is what's responsible. Target exercises for the arms are curls, which just means bringing the arm up, and then you load the bicep with some weight in your hand, and then you just keep the upper arm straight in line with your body, and then you just flex the elbow to bring the hand with the weight up. Extensions is the opposite movement, so you start up and you press down using the tricep. And then grip exercises for forearm. Your forearms, they can grow larger and stronger as well. And so the way you do that is by grip, pronation, supination, exercises like that. We'll get into that in further lessons. But yeah, those are the main muscle groups for the arms. Vital for arm and grip strength, daily tasks. There's nothing you really do every day besides walk that does not include your arms. Me holding this mic right here, pressing through these slides requires movement of the arms. So arms also are, if your goal is to look better, it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing to see large and developed. So with that, we'll move into core muscles, and I just keep happening to be right in the middle of the pictures. But core muscles, your main muscles in the core are your rectus abdominis, which is just commonly referred to as your abs. That's your six pack. Abdominal obliques, which are the muscles on the side of your abs. And then I included the erector spinae. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sure everybody says it differently though. Spinae, whatever. I included that here because technically it's part of your core. It's like the middle of your body, right? But that's actually on your back. So let's go ahead and move backwards, all the way back to back. The erector spinae, if you can see, is your lower back, pretty much right here in this picture. Lower back. That's your erector spinae. That's responsible for a lot of the hinging movements that you're going to be doing, like hinging at the hips, if you think about. But anyways, the function of your core in general is to stabilize the body and support movement. So think of all the things you do in a day and just realize that core is responsible for a lot of the stability you have doing any of that. So that's your core is the reason that you can sit up straight. Your core is the reason that you can carry things, because without the core, you kind of just fold and flop around, right? So it's important to develop this section of the body specifically. Target exercises would be planks, crunches, back extensions. I think everybody's seen a plank before. If not, it's it's kind of like doing a push-up, but without actually pressing. You're just kind of laying there, stabilizing yourself on the ground, and letting the abs do the work to keep yourself up instead of folding down to touch the ground. Crunches, everyone's done a sit-up, or at least seen somebody do a sit-up. Back extension is kind of just the opposite of a sit-up. You're just going from a bent position and extending your back all the way up. And like I said, these are crucial for balance, posture, movement, and injury prevention. Injury prevention is an interesting one because bracing your core, something we'll talk about again for the lessons, but bracing the core is actually a preventative measure for injury. So while you're doing other movements, heavy compound lifting, right, you want to brace that core to prepare yourself to hold the weight. Because like I said, the core is the middle of your body. So keeping that stiff, keeping that tight, keeping that, when I say stiff and tight, I mean like while you're working out, while you're doing a movement. But also you need to develop these so that they can be fluid, like moving, you know what I mean? So you don't want a stiff core in any other time besides when you're doing, some heavy lifting, but absolutely essential, your core muscles here. I'll talk about the legs. Pictures are in the next slide, don't worry. I know you guys are enjoying the pictures, but anyways, main muscles are your quadriceps, commonly referred to as the quads. That's just the front. If you're looking at a body from the front, your quads is just the muscle you can see in the front there of your thigh. Hamstrings, if you're looking at a body from the rear, are the muscles underneath your butt, right, on the back side of your leg. Calves are just the muscles that once again, if you're looking at the back of the body, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and move over to this side so you guys can see the picture. There we go. Starting on the left, that's your quadriceps, your quads. Up here in the middle, that's your hamstrings. On the back side of your leg, calves. There's the gastrocnemius is the actual name for that, but we don't need to be worried about that. It's your calf. On the back here is the lower half of the leg. Glutes, where your butt is. And adductors and abductors are on the inside. And, okay. Adductors are blue. I was going to say, it doesn't look like they highlighted the adductors here, but if you can see the blue, adductors are on the outside of your legs, like the hip muscles, if you want to think of it that way. And abductors are on the inside near the groin area. So now that you guys have seen that, we'll, there you go. Okay. Move the camera one more time. So that's a list of the muscles in your legs. So the function of your legs, pretty self-explanatory. Supports walking, running, jumping, lifting. Extend and rotate hips, right? So movement at all, pressing with your legs at all, jumping, lifting weight, I mean, you've all heard the adage, don't lift with your back, lift with your legs. And that's true. You don't want to strain the back when your legs are far stronger, I should say. Target exercises for the legs, squats, unbeatable exercise. Very difficult to do correctly, but we'll hopefully teach you guys how to do that better in a few lessons. Lunges, where you just walk. It's basically like you take a larger step forward and then bring yourself down. So allow yourself to squat with one leg, essentially. Calf raises, you're just pressing with the calves to stand up taller, basically. Abduction and adduction, that's the two. The abductor and adductor we talked about is just moving of the hips. So either your hips, if you're sitting down, either you're like imagine trying to crush a watermelon between your legs, and then imagine trying to extend. Let's say you like held your legs are together, whether you're sitting down, you tried to extend them outwards. That's abduction and adduction there. Just as the hip muscles. Your glute bridges are for the gluteus maximus, commonly referred to as the glutes, such as your butt muscles. Glute bridges are we'll get into that later, but that's you can like I said, I keep saying we'll get into that later because we will. But if you guys have questions too, just use Google. Just Google what is a squat, what is a glute bridge, right? Or throw it in the chat. We can get some extra information on there later. But hip thrust as well, kind of the same thing as glute bridges. But anyways, foundation for mobility, lower body power, balance, rather not balance. Yeah, your leg muscles are where all of the drive and power comes from in your body. So if you're going to be rotating, pushing through something, lifting something, running, like all of the power comes from your legs up through your core to be moving yourself forward, to be propelling yourself. So it's absolutely essential to be developing the leg muscles and leg mobility as well for the joints. So we'll look at the pictures one more time. There you go. Adductors are moving the hips outward, abductors moving the hips inward, and the legs are working in sync to be doing whatever it is you got to do on a daily basis. All right, we got our last content slide here. Talking about the importance of good form. So why is this here instead of in the lessons where we actually go through real training regimens? Well, because understanding body mechanics is essentially the first step to understanding good form, to developing good form, I should say. Good form protects against injury, and so that's kind of the main reason people prioritize form. But what I think sometimes people forget to understand is that good form actually maximizes muscle engagement, which can lead to improved results over time. So I'll just keep going down the list by means of quality over or quality movements. Never mind, forget I said that. Proper form maximizes muscle engagement, which leads to improved results over time. So what I mean by that is if you have just been doing a bench press incorrectly for a year, you will see some gains because it requires some muscles, whether you're doing it incorrectly or correctly. It requires some muscles, it might be the wrong ones, to develop, to become strong enough to adapt to the weight in which you're putting your body under, right? But that person who's doing a bench press incorrectly over time is going to develop far less lean muscle mass and strength compared to someone who's doing it absolutely perfect due to good form over a year, right? That person is going to be able to avoid more injury and properly contract and stretch the muscles to a point where you're getting maximum hypertrophy out of it, which is the term we use for the development of muscles, right? Basically put. But yeah, quality over quantity in movements is the goal here. So we don't want to just be throwing out 20 really bad movements of any exercise really, and then saying, oh, well, you did all our movements for the day. It's like, well, a lot of times if you can prioritize a heavier weight with lower reps that are super high quality, that's going to be far better than like 20 or 30 repetitions of some pretty crappy movements there with any weight really, but lighter generally. So you want to prioritize good form to maximize the amount of quality repetitions you're completing per exercise. And that last point there, kind of just to give you guys some hope, because I know that this is a lot of information I'm throwing at you guys every time we have a slide deck, I should say. But don't forget, you guys can 100%, contact myself as the creator of these videos and as the person who has 7 years experience doing such things. Helped a lot of people. I'm currently working with a client right now. I mean, that aside, utilize myself, utilize the internet, and just ask questions. Like if you, this is like the point that this is how it started for me as well. This is how it starts for most people when it happens naturally. Is you see some piece of content teaching you how to do something in the gym, and this is a lot more comprehensive than what I got started off for sure. But what happens is you'll see a piece of content, and you'll somebody's walking outside my window. Sorry about that. Um, you'll see a piece of content and you'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, what does that actually look like in application? And then you start doing a little bit more research. And then you start liking posts on Instagram while you're scrolling about the gym. And then it's like, oh, it's you just start getting fed more and more content about how to get in the gym and how to be doing certain things. And then through practice and through asking questions and through your own research on top of what you're seeing, or you can go the route of like paying, I do that as well. Paying, like I said, working with a client, paying somebody to teach you how to do these things. Not exactly necessary. Maybe some consulting to be like, how do I actually apply this in my personal life? But not exactly necessary. If you just utilize the resources that exist out there, right? There's a plethora of free knowledge on exactly how to prioritize good form on this specific exercise. That said, we're going to teach a lot more of it coming in the coming lessons, and we're only 4 out of 10 throughout this mini series in deep anyway. So I'm not advising you just go on your own and just you know rely on people's opinion on the internet. But it's a good resource should you have specific questions for specific things. So, anyways, I'll quit yapping about that. Putting it together. So, with all this knowledge, how are we going to put this together? Understanding muscles and their function and their movements builds a strong foundation for you to be putting on better weight in the gym, to be doing it properly, and to understand why you are implementing, I should say, some certain movements in your regimen over others. Understanding body mechanics reinforces proper form and balance, prevents injury. Um, well, this is another point that we didn't really talk about yet, but the reason it's important to target all of these muscle groups and not just like, oh, I want to be better at push-ups, so I'm just only going to do chest, is because you want your strength and your aesthetics, the way you look, to be overall balanced, right? And the way you achieve that is by training each muscle group individually every week, right? And you learn through experience. So, if you see this and you feel comfortable enough to be like, okay, I'm going to go, try hit a bench press. Oh, it looks like triceps might be involved. Kind of we talked about how the shoulders kind of are involved as well. So let me just go do those three. Um, learn through experience. I go work out, try something, see how it works for you. If you find like, I feel like something's missing, this is working, but I feel like I could be doing better. Like ask questions, use resources that we talked about in the previous slide. But this is all something you kind of learn through experience. So obviously, I could teach you and I could show you how to have the exact proper form on an exercise for an entire lesson. Until you've been in the gym just long enough to understand how it feels when you actually do the thing, it's the teaching I give you. It's not worthless, but it's like it only means so much until you actually go try it and you can feel like, okay, it does feel incorrect to have my arms placed like this while I do a bench press, or oh, this actually feels pretty great to like properly use, like the flaring of my lats while I'm benching so that I can be more stable, right? Those are just specific examples, but you got to learn through experience. So take all of this, take the next few lessons to come. We'll start implementing. It'll be good practice for you, good experience to a point where you can start implementing your own regimen throughout the day or throughout your life, I guess, by means of daily activity. And with that, I will see you for lesson 5. Like I said, ask questions in the chat, use your resources, and we will see you next time.